The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in this podcast belong solely to those expressing them and do not necessarily reflect the OSIP Foundation Incorporated or any other group or individual. This podcast may contain dialogue or subject material that could be considered for mature audiences only. All aspects of how you play the game and the OSIP Foundation Incorporated are protected by copyright and other state and federal intellectual property laws. Unauthorized use without the express written consent of the OSIP Foundation Incorporated is strictly prohibited. If you're interested in sponsoring How You Play the Game, please email us at podcast@osipfoundation.org. Your sponsorship may be tax deductible. Remember when white people were upset that MASH got canceled?
Sure.
Well, they didn't renew The Acolyte for Season 2, so did we win?
Ooh.
If you have to think about it for more than 5 seconds, I don't know if we did. So.
What does win mean in this case?
Yeah,
we don't.
No, we don't know. No, I think it's warriors in nudity
scenes. Warriors in nude scenes.
Nudes wins. Okay.
Yeah,
I see what you did there.
right.
So it's now multiple wins.
Can be. I mean, if you didn't like The Acolyte because of reasons, yes, it's a win. But if you wanted it to be better and you wanted to give them another chance for a proverbial season 2, then no.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Maybe. Are any of these warriors actually ending up nude?
I mean, that's really the $1,000,000 question.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I don't think I need to see Manny Jacinto nude. He's already pretty ripped.
I mean, he was nude in the first season, but like we couldn't see anything.
Right. Yeah,
so I want my money back.
I knew you would.
Let's get in the game here.
Thank you, Disney Plus. You know,
let's get in the game with this.
Let's get in the game here.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that whole thing was like, it was a shame because there were good parts. I mean, we talked about this ad nauseum.
We did 2 episodes about it. We talked about it.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about it too much, but like, you know, there were good parts about it, and like, I feel like they know what the good parts were at the end and could have maybe did more of that in season 2, like potentially, but it would have been nice to have seen the show kind of evolve,
right?
Especially with Venestra and like looking for OSHA, and you know, that would have been a cool plot mechanic. And
now they'll just do a book or a comic or something and say that's enough.
Yeah.
And we all know you don't read, so
it's right. So, lost cause.
Even comics are tough for you. So,
well, no comics I can do. There's pictures.
See, I don't know about that. I'm telling you what you can and cannot do.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah,
well.
Yeah.
Well, my collection of Dark Horse Star Wars comics says differently, of course.
Oh, okay. In that case, I'm going to come over and burn them.
Crimson Empire.
I'm going to burn them, and I'm bringing warriors and nude scenes to do it.
Remember that? Okay.
Yeah,
well,
can you pause.
I'll read that. Yeah. I'll read that.
There's no reading involved. That's just standing there and watching.
That's fine.
You know. You can probably sit down at some point.
You remember that one, Crimson Empire?
I think so.
With Jax, the red guard.
Why's he got to be red?
And the Emperor's personal guard.
Oh, okay. I thought you were making some sort of racist thing.
Against. I mean, it can be if you really want.
So we want it to be racist. We want racist.
I mean,
racist warriors and nude scenes.
Rawins. Okay. No, that was a cool story. One of my favorites. But
well, good.
Anyway, so yeah. I mean, I'm kind of bummed about it, but maybe this is like a wake up call for Disney. Like, hey, look, the declining viewership is telling you something. Like, I mean, the review bombing is one thing, but like, not all of those were fake.
Well,
like a lot of them. a lot of them were like real people saying, yeah, no, this is not the way it should be.
But at the same time, I almost feel like the wake up call, like, okay, so there could be a wake up call, but at the same time, they're almost cutting their nose to spite their face. I feel, like, okay, instead of saying, hey, we need to do differently with season 2, they just said, no, we're not even going to do a season 2.
Right, almost in an act of defiance.
Right. And I was just as if to say, okay, you win. Like, stop with the dramatics, people.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's at this point it is what it is, and you kind of move on. I mean, have you seen the trailer to Skeleton Crew?
Yes.
I gotta be honest, I'm not excited about it.
Well, it's right now. It's built in a way that looks like, a Goonies ET,
right?
Set somehow in a Star Wars universe.
Like, it didn't look like Star Wars at all.
No,
like,
the neighborhoods and stuff like that.
Right? And I'm just like, what is this?
Yeah.
And I'm just, again, I don't know. It's. Well,
let's put it this way. They're on thin ground.
Disney is, yeah.
They're on thin ice with this. And
yes.
Skeleton Crew better hit it out of the park.
Right.
If they are going to, make something of this. Otherwise, I got a feeling they're like, look, we did not do well with Acolyte. We did not do well with Skeleton Crew. Tamura Morrison is pissed off about Boba Fett.
Yep.
Well,
Disney was even contemplating on taking the Acolyte off of Disney Plus.
Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah. They're
for I forget what it was. Like, it was something to have to do with rights or some, like, the paying for the rights,
the royalties and stuff like
royalties
that.
to have it on.
Because
like,
if they leave it on,
when they do that, like, that's pretty bad.
If they take it off for that reason, now it's a matter of saving. Listen, we did not make our investment back. We didn't do this. We didn't do that. We got to save some costs here until, It
was like 200 million was spent on the show, or 290.
I thought it was originally like 180.
Oh, okay.
But then if you add in more, based upon, I don't know if there was anything in post, or after the release, that maybe we were not factoring in, but like that 180
they
number.
did not make that back.
No
way did they make that back.
So yeah, it's going to be, but that's also where so much of life is right now too. Like, if you just look at the stock markets, you look at everything that's happening, the way consumers are spending their money right now. As we approach the end of the fiscal year, especially in an election year, we're all kind of like scratching our heads, like, what the hell are we supposed to do here? Because our pockets are all, kind of looking at it like, what the hell? But you kind of have to wait until, like, the school year starts again, and you can start to see if there's any regrowth and normalcy, and then you wait and see. So I don't know. But it's we're just going to have to play the waiting game a little bit.
Right.
I can see that you're off camera doing something, so I'll tell everybody that this is a fantastic time to tell you that welcome to How You Play the Game, the official podcast of the OSIP Foundation Incorporated. Yours truly, Jack Furlong, with you as we talked about what's going on as far as the world of sportsmanship is concerned. This is the first episode of the month of September. The year is 2024. Glad you can be with us. As always, check us out online at osipfoundation.org. You can contact the show via email using the address podcast@osipfoundation.org. On social media, we're at facebook.com/osipfoundation. X and Instagram are both at OSIP Foundation, #How You Play the Game. Across the way from me, as always, is the producer engineer of the show, who's looking off to the side as if he's being photographed for a mugshot, Mr. Sean Ryan. Sean, we got the front, we got the side. Yeah, are you properly ready for jail?
Police are already on their way. I'm just, getting a head start.
Okay, that's fair. If I were you, I'd get in the golf cart, because Lord knows you're not getting anywhere walking.
Right.
So,
and I've paid for that cart.
Yes, you did. Yes, you
so
did.
You're going to get my bail.
It's a contractual obligation
at this point. Yeah.
I would love to see like an OJ type chase of you in a golf cart and the cops trying to follow you at like golf cart speed, Give him some space, folks.
With my clubs in the back.
The Cubs in the yeah. I'm trying to get down the fairway.
I stopped to get out my club and hit the ball again, and the cops stop behind me, and then I get back in and again.
It's kind of like Timmy in South Park when they were doing that to almost mock the OJ chase.
I was going to say it was like George Costanza getting chased while he was on his rascal.
Yes, that works too. Yeah. Yep. And there are multiple Seinfeld references there that can work. So,
are you a religious man? No, I'm not.
No,
hickory.
I am the Senate. Okay.
Oh God. Yeah, so I have a good Palpatine voice right now because of my allergies.
Oh my God. I mean, I was looking at the forecast, and I think today is like the last big hot day, and then it's supposed to cool off, and like we might start to get the remnants of a normal, relaxing summer before we hit into some fall weather.
I am the Senate.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm just like, friggin' finally, man, because, one day you wake up and you're like, oh, okay. And then the next day you wake up and you're like, what is this?
And the thing is, I normally love summer. Like, summer's my favorite season.
Right.
But this summer has just been like, excuse me.
Speaking of.
Sorry.
That's all right.
I will not edit that out.
I didn't think you would.
It's like, it's just been like, it would be like scorching hot for like 3 weeks at a time.
Yep.
100% humidity. And then all of a sudden 60 degrees for like a few days. And now it's back up again.
Yeah.
So
there's no rhime or reason. And the timing is bad too, because the heat happened more in July. Normally, I think it happens, closer to August for us.
Yeah.
And, now we're starting to actually get, some of that fall weather or hints of it, in August. And we're kind of like, does Mother Nature have a tea time and she's got to get out of here?
It's going to snow next week.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the good news is that I have a snow blower that I haven't been able to use in a couple of years because we haven't had snow. So
your snow blower is
it's actually called a Snow Joe.
A Snow Joe.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is an electric shovel.
I was going to say he's snorting some coke.
Well, yeah. Cocaine is a hell of a drug.
Yeah.
I was just talking to a girl last night who told me that if she was that her parents wanted to name her Ricky and her last name was James.
Little Dave Chappelle callback there.
Yeah, exactly. And we all had
James.
we all had a round of Samuel Jackson beer and called it a night. So
that sounds good.
Yeah.
Minus the cocaine.
Well, it was cold.
Well, that remains to be seen.
Yeah, right? Really, if you think about it. Yeah. So anyway, speaking of cocaine, let's get into it today.
Sure.
We wanted to start with the story that came out of Boston recently. There was a story where Red Sox outfielder Jarren Duran was caught on a hot mic using a gay slur towards a fan, and it was reported, and then they talked to him about it, and they ended up suspending him for 2 games, and his salary for those 2 games was donated to an LGBTQ whatever charity and whatnot, and he was remorseful and this, that, the other, and okay, so it was in the news cycle for a little bit of time. However, you watch the clip, you do the research on it, and then you come to find out that his jersey sales skyrocketed after this, and you're just like, all right, what's really going on here? And let me start with the clip itself. You can hear the fan. So Duran is at bat when this is happening. You can hear the fan like berating him, like unfairly berating. This is an all-star this year, okay? Like this is an absolute all-star, having a fantastic year. Also, this is a kid who has documented the fact that he has really had some mental struggles to make it to the big leagues. He has really gone through the ringer and has overcome a lot to be in the right mental space to get to the big leagues. And to have a person at Fenway Park, where his home park, basically just berate him while he's trying to hit right off the bat, is no pun intended, is really, really disgraceful on the part of the fan.
Right.
Now, in that situation, you know, all you saw was Duran turn back towards the stands, looking past the umpire, and you couldn't even the untrained ear probably can't even pick it up that well, where you heard him say, "Shut up, you blank and blank." You know, you really have to be looking for it. You have to be searching for, for that kind of a thing in order to try and call the guy out. It's not like he was on a hot mic as close as I am to the microphone now saying it. Okay.
Right.
It almost gave off the impression of him kind of saying it under his breath to a certain degree.
Right.
Don't forget he's at bat at this point. So he's in a tense situation. He's playing a game right now. And that's when people went ballistic, right. Most notably on, their computers. No one in the game at the time really did anything about it, I think.
Well, because they couldn't tell.
Right. And the rest is history.
Right.
And you and I had discussed this briefly. We were talking about, how this is, there's a lot that goes into this that kind of blows it out of proportion. And it's not that we're endorsing, the use of these slurs by any stretch of the imagination. What we're trying to do is look at the entirety of the situation and try and understand why it happened and cut the guy some slack, all things considered, Right. And as I thought about it, I came to one major realization, and I wanted to make sure I brought this up before I forget. We have heard from our friends, the umpires, at times, things to the tune of, as we talk about the arguments and the ejections and things like that, they understand that there's a lot of testosterone in the game, and they're competing, and they're essentially giving these uniformed personnel carte blanche to act inappropriately, per se, in the name of competition, as if to try and say, I understand why this is happening. It's quote unquote part of the game, etc. If you're going to subscribe to that, if you're going to submit that, if you're going to use that as your argument, the same thing has to apply here. And you have to understand that, in a moment of testosterone filled, I don't want to say rage, but a response, something like that can come out. And that doesn't necessarily represent who he is, but it does represent the fact that we are allowing testosterone, we are allowing this stuff to happen, but you can't use a naughty word when it happens. Some bad words are totally fine and others are not okay.
Right.
The line is moving here in a situation where it's incredibly vague from the get-go.
That's like the Lewis Black joke where, there's no such thing as bad language.
Right.
Right. It's like, you're a father of 3 and you just lost your job and your pension and health benefits and insurance and all that. And you're not going to be sitting on the couch going, "Oh, pussy feathers."
Yeah.
No, you're going to be using some other words that are totally justifiable considering that situation. And when you look at this instance, it's unfortunate that it was said, and, it sucks, but again, you have to consider the moment and you have to consider what's going on. I mean, it's like a when a pitching coach steps out onto the mound, that pitcher's not listening to anything he's saying. No. It's just the act of just trying to settle him down and give him some breathing room.
Right.
That's the point, right? So it all falls into that situation.
Yeah, he might not even know what he's saying.
Right.
Duran, it's again, I know that the lines are moving and I know that the whole situation is gray. If I can try and use an example to contrast with it, okay? I think back to a story that Dale Scott told us many, many moons ago, where he was in the umpire locker room for a playoff game. And I think he said it was Greg Gibson who was telling a story. And he described something in front of Dale as something being really faggy.
Yeah.
Do you remember this story? And
yes.
And at that moment, Greg was just like, oh, God, I can't believe I said that. And Dale's response was very mature. He was just like, the fact that you just, kind of recognized that is all I need. I'm not, I'm not upset. I'm more happy that you just recognize that that it could be offensive.
Right.
And to me, that's much more mature. But it's also a different situation because in that situation, they're not in a testosterone filled rage, if you will. They're in a relaxed sanctuary, shooting the breeze with the guys.
Right.
So that's different than being at bat in a Major League Baseball game and having a fan heckle you.
Well, and I also feel that the response to all of this is overblown.
Oh, very much so.
So, you had mentioned that the Red Sox organization, after suspending him for 2 games, was it? Used that money to support or to donate to LGBTQ communities.
Yes.
And I mean, you if you divorce yourself from the fact that something unfortunate happened that involved, yes, the inadvertent is the key word, use of this slur, now to just turn around and say, oh, well, this is our penance. Now let's just give loads of money to these organizations, right, because someone said something by accident. Like, what does that do?
Right.
Like, does that really solve the problem? Does it really, yeah, okay, these organizations have more funding for potential outreach and education. Okay, great. But they're not going to say, hey, thanks to a guy using using the F word,
right,
we have more money now. Right. You're welcome.
Yeah.
Like, they're not going to say that.
I wish more people would go out and just say that. We'd be rolling.
Wow. You should almost thank.
Yeah.
Jaron Duran.
Yeah.
You should almost thank Jaron Duran for saying that.
Right.
Like, if it weren't for him, we wouldn't be getting all this extra money.
Right.
So it goes like you're cutting out the middleman at that point.
I can just see a hilarious sketch where he's just like almost walking down the street calling people the F word, and then boom, just money ends up in their hands.
Even like if you like these lobbyists from these LGBTQ communities saying, hey, Jaron, can you say the F word at this game?
Yes.
Can you say the F word at this game? Don't tell your boss. Can you just say, say this, say it here and that? And I know, obviously this is a joke, right? We're making a joke about this. One would hope that
people realize that
realize that we're not being serious.
Yeah.
But in a way, it's like you're the reactionary response of the organization to just instantly throw money at these organizations. Like, it almost seems like there wasn't really any thought put into it.
Right.
Like, it would just happen so quickly. And it's just like, the way that you almost have to see how this is handled from inside. Like, I don't know anything about it, but like, almost like, all right, Frank, this is what we need you to do. We need you to randomly pick some of these communities and organizations. It doesn't matter which ones,
Yeah.
and just throw a bunch of money at them.
Yep.
Like there's like just like I almost want to think, and I can't presume that. Obviously, I'm sure a modicum of thought was put into it, but like it just happened so quickly,
Right.
that you almost wonder, like, was research really done at all? In like a good here's what would have been better. Okay. Jaron Duran, obviously, he said this unfortunate thing. He himself should go and meet with these organizations and say, what can I do
Right.
personally to help this organization? Whether that means, and you know what? Money, these players have all the money in the world. What if he volunteered?
Right. And said,
did some
I'm
outreach.
not actually cut. No one's cutting you a check. It's,
Right. Let me speak, do some outreach,
right,
and help you guys
in a positive way,
in a positive way,
in opposed to a guilt-driven way.
Exactly.
Because
that's
penance,
right,
is never really meaningful from that standpoint.
No, it's not. And it's almost like, okay, money helps, but in a way it depends on the context, right?
Right.
If you're just throwing money for the sake of
throwing money
apologizing
exactly
at a problem, that's an empty gesture.
Very much so.
I mean,
much so.
It would be more intrinsic for Jaron to just say, what can I do? Reach out directly to organizations. What can I do to help?
Yeah, exactly.
I messed up. I made a mistake. What personally can I do?
Yeah.
And let me meet with some of these people. Maybe some, meet with some potential, gay or transgendered people who want to play baseball.
Could be.
And maybe
and support them and just say, look, you can do this.
Them,
yeah.
Or maybe even help them in batting practice.
Something.
Or, and just like, I feel like that is worth its weight in gold.
Right.
Because you are doing something.
Right.
Right. Instead of just an organization on your behalf throwing money.
And it would almost be, and to go along with that, because I think that's so important, obviously, first of all, you have to wonder, is the media going to cover this? Because right off the bat, that asks the question of, am I doing this just for the media attention? Right. So you almost have to say, like, listen, I don't know which is better, because sometimes you have to kind of fall on the sword for this, and you have to say, listen, we'll make a media thing out of this so that people get their pound of flesh, because it would be more valuable if Jaron Duran did what you said without people even knowing about it.
Right. Anonymously, almost.
But at the same time, knowing, the practical nature of this, you have to kind of bring the media in to do it, to say, look, we did something, because that probably lessens the blow, instead of having people yelling at you like, I can't believe you didn't do anything. That, I get it. I totally get it. It's a double-edged sword. However, when the media does cover it, instead of leading with or even publishing anything where he says, I'm really sorry, I did this, I did blah 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 blah, it's, I decided that this was the right opportunity for me to do something, and let's take a look at what I'm actually doing, and I'll show you what we've been able to do, rather than to wallow in the guilt and the shame.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's very akin to, we used to talk about this in seminary a lot, because we were talking about penance and reconciliation and whatnot. And there's this thought that, especially in kind of the old school Catholic thinking, that, as you sin, okay, you have to go to confession to have your sins forgiven, and then you have to do a penance. Okay. And the fact of the matter is that, we've tried to evolve our thought to the point where we've said, it has nothing to do with the ability to just kind of wipe away the sin and then go back to sinning and whatnot. It's you've already been forgiven. Go make it right with the person you offended.
Right.
Like when we would practice that, we would, people would say, can will you hear my confession? We're like, we actually don't believe, or at least I don't believe that any human being has the ability to quote unquote, forgive your sins because you've already been forgiven. You
Hmm.
don't need me. Okay.
Right.
But what I can do is listen to you and help you see a way where, maybe you have the ability to reconcile and make it right with the person you offended. And that's more important than just having your sins forgiven without reconciling or something like that. And it's
Yeah.
the thing here in that it's, throwing money at this, saying you're sorry, all that kind of stuff to the media and blah 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 like that. That's that's much more empty by
Right.
comparison.
This becomes a case of cyclic permutation in a way because
Yes,
it's like you have this cycle of sin, penance, and at some point along the lines, it becomes like the penance almost gives you a reason to sin again.
exactly.
If it's an empty gesture,
Yep.
right? If you're just confessing and saying a prayer and you're not actually doing something for the person you've harmed
Right.
physically or mentally or emotionally, right? You're just saying, well, I know I'm going to forgive myself and I know I'm just going to say some prayers and it'll all go away and that'll give me free reign, carte blanche to sin again.
Right.
Right. So it becomes valueless at that point. Like this whole throwing money thing at these organizations, and I think that's what more people need to realize. In fact, it makes you almost look, it makes you almost look fake in a way.
Yeah.
Like if you're just, I mean, because look, a lot of these corporations and like especially during Pride Month, right? This corporate pandering
Yeah.
and it's like it's so obviously fake.
Yeah.
It's so a lot of these corporations that support LGBTQ initiatives and all of that. It's like, and then when June is over,
We just
well,
forget about it
we
again.
just forget about it
It's the
again.
same thing with
And
Black History Month or
that's the
Women's
same thing
Month
with
or
all these
Breast
history
Cancer
months.
Awareness Month.
We're compartmentalizing.
Yeah.
We're compartmentalizing our concern and our uh our celebrations.
Yeah.
When we should be,
Doing it all
instead
the
of,
time.
we should just not be acting like assholes.
Right.
That's what we should be doing.
Well,
Like we should.
it's the same thing with like Mother's Day. Why do we I'm not anti Mother's Day. What I'm saying is, shouldn't every day be Mother's Day?
Right. Right.
I get it. Mother's Day is the day that you're supposed to celebrate that, but I prefer to think of my mom, nicely on all days.
But those are Hallmark holidays.
Yep.
Those are holidays created by Hallmark greeting cards,
Yep.
and just to sell, just for an excuse to
And that's
sell
the same
more.
thing. That's the same thing with
Right.
Pride Month, for
Right.
example, or any month of history and
Right.
reflection,
Right.
And to kind of go back to the reconciliation thing just for a quick moment, because I realized it was very general the way that I put it. That's not to say that there aren't situations where, internally, sometimes it may not even be a sin per se in the true definition. It's just there is an inner guilt, there is an inner shame, and sometimes the inner work is what has to be done. We're kind of looking at this from an external standpoint. And I think also, to kind of go along the same lines, if you listen to the press conference that Duran did, boy, was he like wallowing in guilt and shame. And to me, especially knowing, what kind of a mental grind he has had in his life, you're actually almost doing more damage this way. So are we going to continue to, excuse me, to just bring Duran down for the sake of seeking forgiveness? That's not how this works. That is the old Catholic guilt premise of forgive me, I'm so horrible. Like you're not doing a lot of good by doing that.
Right. And that's almost like you would almost think like you'd almost think that organizations who are very left wing would be against that sort of thing.
Yep.
Right. That Catholic guilt, it
but that's also what fuels the left wing at the same time, using those openings to attack, to say, and I hate to make this somewhat political, but I mean, that's where the hypocrisy begins to be seen, in that it's, you are becoming the very thing you swore to destroy. You're pulling a full Anakin Skywalker here.
Right.
Okay. You think that you're doing all this good stuff for this cause, but in reality, you're just displacing it, because now you're making people feel real shitty and really defensive.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it devalues the apology.
Correct.
Here's another thing too. It takes a lot of courage to apologize these
Very much
days.
so. You know what the three most difficult things are to say in the English language?
I need help.
I'm sorry. I need help. Worcester sauce.
Yes. And so I think that, both extremes, and this isn't only the left, it's the far right as well.
We're using that as an example just because it's where it falls on the pendulum swinging.
Yeah, so you have these extremes, and who are so stubborn that no amount of apologizing is ever going to be good enough.
Right.
And when you look at someone who is apologizing and maybe showing a little humanity, you need to kind of take stock in that.
Yes.
Like, Jaron Duran felt extremely guilty, I'm sure, of it. I'm sure he felt like a sack of shit.
Yep.
During the whole thing. I mean, and especially considering the mental baggage that he has.
Yep.
And how he was able to overcome to get to this point. Maybe the other side should just maybe take stock in that and say, hey, it took some courage to apologize, and let's see what happens from his standpoint.
Right.
And then we move on.
And let's not forget also, in this day and age, especially, and to kind of tie it all together, okay, look at the role of the media in this, because in this situation, okay, we are using the media to learn about it. They are the ones who get to select the narrative of what gets displayed to the public. Okay, not every media outlet and media member reports things objectively. So we're already at their mercy. And then through social media, okay, we essentially only hear the people who scream the loudest. Yep. And that is a very small subset of people in existence. Yep. Would we have even known about Duran's jersey sales skyrocketing if the media hadn't reported on it? Maybe the jersey sales skyrocketing was just a silent way of supporting him, but it becomes ammunition because of how it gets reported.
Yes.
So you're dealing with a lot here in this example, and yet at the same time, this is all too textbook.
Right.
Yeah,
it's like, the sales. You have to wonder how much of that is attributed. I mean, look.
Could it be review bombing, if you will?
Right. Or it's like, like even bad press is good press.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
sort of thing.
Yeah.
Right. And that's it in a nutshell, isn't it? Like you because the media has such control over how things are portrayed, and even if you get bad press, that's still press.
Still press, yeah. Let me ask you one final thing. I want to give you a hypothetical to kind of put a bow on this whole thing. All right?
Mhm.
In that moment where Jaron Duran was at bat and he said that, if he had either immediately after saying it called time, walked to the dugout, told Alex Gore, the manager, put in a pinch hitter, like I just did something I shouldn't have, and I need to be alone for a while, or if he had basically done that after completing the at bat as he started to think about it, essentially removing himself from the game while it was still being played because of that. Rather than being told after we need to do something, would that have made it better? Why or why not?
Well, I don't think so. And I'll tell you why. Because the very fact that it was caught in the first place tells you that there are people looking for
Yes.
things like this. So no amount of action or reconciliatory feelings, gestures is going to fix it.
Right.
You can't. I don't think it would have. I mean, it may have been perceived differently, but I think the end result would have been pretty much the same. I mean, they would have probably mentioned it. They would have said, well, he went over to the dugout to extricate himself from the game, and in response to in sort of like a quick way to say, oops, like, let me get out. But then but he still said it. That's not gonna change that, right?
You can't put the genie back in the bottle there.
You can't, right? So it's like you can't. No amount of instant fixing is gonna really take care of that. And again, and furthermore, I think that in a way that almost would have fueled the fire. Like to say, oh, he's just quickly trying to cover up his tracks.
Right.
Like he's doing this. He realized he made a mistake and now he's drawing more attention. That would have almost drawn more attention to it, I think.
Yeah.
So in a way, it's like he said what he said. I mean, gosh, who else? Dustin. Oh my God. I'm blanking.
For the Red Sox?
No. Golfer.
Dustin Johnson.
Dustin Johnson said the F word on the fairway, and a hot mic caught him, and he apologized. And funny, people forgot about that.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, I just remembered it because of this situation.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, he was in the heat of a moment. He made a crappy shot. It happens.
Did he call himself it?
Yeah, I think. Yeah. I think that, or he yelled at the ball or something, like an inanimate object.
Yes.
I can't remember exactly how it went down, but he was like effing F, like under his breath, and there was a hot mic behind him. And it wasn't even that audible. It was
it was the same thing in this situation.
You could hear it. You could hear it if you really listened.
Yep.
And he apologized for it. And I can't remember
if they did anything about it.
I can't remember the sequence of events after that. I have to look back at it. But it's just like. But even if nothing is done, people move on. And we
was it Patrick Reed who did it?
Oh, maybe. I thought it was Dustin Johnson.
Oh, there's Justin Thomas.
Justin Thomas.
Okay. Justin Thomas did it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And he literally just yelled the word, or they say they yelled. He said it after missing a putt in Hawaii.
Okay, maybe that's
that
what
was
it was.
Literally it.
Okay. And when you're in that, and a putt, and the putting green is the most tense situation.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, you're like, so again, I'm not saying that everyone should just be saying this, but It's like, if it happens, and you realize that he's not calling someone that. I mean, in a way, that's almost better than what Jaron Duran did.
Right.
But the situations are parallel in that, something inadvertently was said.
Right.
And apologies were made. And over time, you forget it. And you move on and you try to be a better person. And that's the best that you can do. If your intentions are there to be good and decent, isn't that what should matter?
Right.
People perceive things in a way because they want to perceive them in a way.
Right.
If they look at Jaron Duran and say, well, he said a bad word, so he must be a bad person.
Right.
And they can't separate column A and column B.
And at that point, you have to say, like, have you ever said a bad word? We
can't. Right. We can't. It's getting increasingly more difficult to separate those two things.
Right.
And it's unfortunate.
I'm going to agree with you on the whole thing and just do it in a different way. I feel like had he taken himself out of the game there, okay, yeah, that might have been, the equivalent of the Greg Gibson story with Dale Scott, kind of realizing it right away. But he almost is going to go into, that immediate self-guilt and shame, which is what you don't want. And then the media will probably, like you said, pick it up even more and, make it, just run with the fire. It's a no-win situation because then they're going to double down on it and say he felt bad and he should feel bad and blah, 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 so you're just not going to win.
Right.
You're just not going to win.
No, you can't win.
No, you can't win. And then he hits the button and he goes out of the facility and the night continues.
Right. But yeah, no, it's no amount of apologizing is going to appease the extremes.
Yep.
It's just, you're never going to please everybody. And, an organization throwing money as a way to show penance, that's not really going to do anything on an intrinsic level. And like I said, had Duran volunteered his time to help out these organizations personally,
Different story.
That would have said so much more than just throwing money at them.
Like the late, great Mitch Hedberg said, they say you can't please everybody. And last night, everybody was at my show.
At my show.
Yeah.
Right. Right. And you know what? You can't please everyone, yet his jersey sales are up.
Yep.
So, okay. And guess what? You know what? If no amount of apologizing is good enough for you, you don't have to watch baseball anymore.
There you go.
You don't have to watch the Red Sox anymore. You don't have to support Jaron Duran anymore. That's your choice.
Yep.
Let the rest of us watch it. That's it. That's all it takes.
Yep.
Let the market decide.
I'm just okay.
Yeah. Well, let the market decide.
Yep.
And the market favors. I mean, the market obviously favors him since his jersey sales were up.
Yeah.
So
and it's kind of gone by the wayside now. Because this happened, about a week or two ago.
And the only reason why we're bringing it up now is because we do our podcast every 2 weeks. So.
And we did the thing we did 2 on the Acolyte. So
right.
It's going to be what it's going to be.
Yeah.
Well, I think that puts a bow on it.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
sounds good.
I'm going to go buy a Jaron Duran jersey and yell the F word in public.
Right.
You know? What was that?
And then donate a lot of money to
which I don't have, you know?
Right.
What was that one Family Guy thing where Peter thought the world was going to end? He goes, I'm going to go do the one thing I've always wanted to. I'm going to go into the blackest neighborhood around and yell the N-word.
Yes.
And he comes back and he's dressed up as king of the black people. And he just goes, they respected me for doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah. No, I'm not going to.
Yeah, let's not do that.
No. All right. Well, John, thank you.
Yes,
and
thank you.
We'll reconvene soon. And don't forget always that we're at osafoundation.org, podcast at osafoundation.org, facebook.com/osafoundation, at osafoundation, hashtag how you play the game. And until we talk to you, treat each other with respect. How You Play the Game is a production of the OSA Foundation, Incorporated. The producer-engineer of this episode is Sean Ryan. Music by Soundspring Studio. The executive producer of How You Play the Game is Jack Furlong. For more information, visit osafoundation.org.